Hello and welcome from Buenos Aires, Argentina to this episode of Crossing Borders with Nathan Lustig, where Nate has conversations with entrepreneurs doing business across borders and the people who support them, with a focus on those that have some connection to Latin America. My name is Josefina Dominguez and I am an editor for LatinList, a proud sponsor of the Crossing Borders podcast. Sign up for weekly updates on LatinList.com to get a summary of the week's biggest headlines in Latin American tech news. Nate's guest today is Antonia Rojas, partner at ALLVP, a venture capital firm based in Mexico that has more than $200 million in assets under management across 3 portfolios. They talk about Antonia's journey from entrepreneur to partner at ALLVP, as well as what verticals the firm focuses on. And Antonia also talks about how members of her family were tech pioneers in their fields, and how that has inspired her to pursue a career in tech and eventually invest in ventures that use technology as a means to provide solutions to real problems. We hope you enjoy this conversation with Antonia Rojas.
Hey, Antonia, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being willing to do it.
Hey, Nate. It's a pleasure to be here.
Where are you in the world today?
I'm in Santiago de Chile.
And where are you from originally?
I'm Chilean and I moved to live to Mexico in February. But with the pandemic, I decided to spend time close to family just in case.
Yep, I did the same. Came back to close to family. Tell me a little bit about what you do at ALLVP.
So I joined ALLVP as a partner in January. A little bit about ALLVP. ALLVP is a venture capital firm based in Mexico. And we're seeing investments in technology companies that are disrupting different industries of the region, right? So we focus mainly in 4 different verticals. On one side, we look at fintech. On the other, we look at everything related to the future of commerce. And then we look at human development solutions like edtech, telemedicine, etc. And then lastly, we look at everything related to future of smart cities, right? So that includes logistics, startups, last mile, energy optimization, and resources optimization in general.
So we'll go a little deeper into the investment thesis and types of investments that ALLVP and you do. I wanted to get into your background first. So you're from Chile, and did you always know that you wanted to be in tech, or was it something that just came up in your business career?
That's a good question. So to be super honest, it wasn't something that I always thought I was going to do, right? So it kind of stumbled into my path, right? Although technology was always on my family. So my grandfather was one of the engineers behind the first computer in Germany. And then my grandmother is Chilean. So after a while, they moved back to Chile. And my mother was the first to bring digital photography to Chile. So I was always surrounded by machines and technology, and it was something that was there, but I never saw it as a career path or something that I could follow, right? So I followed more a traditional path, right? I went to study business and economics, and then I went to Germany to work for a real estate bank and follow the traditional path. Then came back to Chile. And while I was here, different earthquakes happened in different moments in time, right? And I was like seeing the devastation that happened in the country. And I was like, how can we be more efficient on helping the people that want to help on one side and people that need help? So the most efficient way to do this is by having a platform where everyone can go out and say, hey, I have this, I can help out with this and so on. And that was a time where I started reconnecting with technology and seeing the effectiveness technology had to solve several different problems, but always as a tool, right? So it's not technology as an end, but rather as a way to make something better. And that's when I started reconnecting with technology and realizing I wanted to pursue a career in technology, right? So it was, as I said, something kind of like I stumbled upon. And now I would never turn back, right? I am a fan of technology, and I believe it's the key to solve the world's toughest problems.
And so you started trying to solve a problem that you saw in your home country, and almost on the entrepreneur side of the table, and then switched over to the investor side of the table. I did a similar kind of move. Talk a little bit about how you thought about making that transition and why it was interesting for you.
Yes, so after the platform that would connect different people's need, right? I joined with two founders from Slovenia that were developing an edtech startup. So we joined Start-Up Chile. We kept developing that platform, connecting with schools, and in that process, I realized I didn't know the dynamics behind a tech startup and behind what really can make you grow, right? So I decided to go to San Francisco to pursue a master in social entrepreneurship that would basically connect the technology side, but also like tough social problems, and how could you form a solution that could help out on this, right? And the vision was always that, right? How can we make things more efficient? So when I came back to Chile, I realized the base of technology was, there was a lot to still desire on the base of technology in Chile, right? So I was like, okay, how can we help out? And the best way I could see at that time to help out was to start investing in technology companies. At that time, I was working for an investment fund that was having mainly real estate investments and a couple of assets, right, and investments in companies, but super traditional. So it was a slow process of convincing them 5 years ago that we should start investing in technology companies. And everyone was like, you're completely crazy, like there is no money there, why don't you just continue investing in real estate, and you're making great returns, right? And but somehow I managed to convince them, and we started investing as angel investors in startup company. And there everything started, right? So I really like, how can you support entrepreneurs with your strategy, with your contacts, with your vision, right, to grow and to continue the development of your company.
You mentioned that you participated in Startup Chile, and I did as well. And I think a lot of people in the Chilean ecosystem have had experiences there. What was your experience in the program, and how has it affected how you see startups going forward?
So I really like the fact that they have been able to bring talent all over the world. So my co-founders were from Slovenia, and they came to Chile for the program. So that is something that I believe Startup Chile has done very well, and that bringing out talents of different countries brings diversity of ideas, right? So I see it as a seeder of so many new ideas and opportunities, right? And I think that has spurred this spirit of innovation and of doing greater things in Chilean society as a whole. And I believe we should definitely have more of that, right? We need more diversity of ideas. We need more perspectives, different perspectives, and initiatives like Startup Chile really spur that and help make that happen.
When you were at the real estate firm and wanting to push into more high risk, high reward investments like tech startups, what kind of arguments worked to convince more traditional people to actually make that happen? That seems like one of the biggest problems in Latin America is getting people who are comfortable with real estate and other traditional businesses to get into tech.
Yes, that's a very good question. And I think my argument was always on the efficiency side, right? So how can you make a business that has traditionally worked more efficient through technology? And that's why we started investing mostly on B2B startups, right? They were SaaS solutions, and they were going into the corporates or companies' problem and making them more efficient to solve those problems. I think that helped on understanding what the technology could do and what startups could do. So we didn't go directly to B2C, for example, or trying to change the world dramatically from one day to the next one, but rather on improvements on what was being done at the moment.
And so you made your first investments from starting to pivot into tech. What happened next?
So I continue investing in as an angel in different tech companies, but it was, I would say, 95% of my time, and I really loved it. So my passion was there, but it was not 95% of my portfolio, right? So I was encountering with a personal challenge that I was dedicating a lot of my time, my energy, going everywhere, talking to anyone that ever knew something or heard about tech entrepreneurship, and that was doing like cool things. and it was definitely not what my job was about, right? So at some point I met the co-founders of Manutara Ventures, a Chilean venture capital fund, and they were starting out with the fund. So I talked with one of the partners there, and we became friends while seeing together different investments. And at some point he said, Antonia, you are spending 95% of your time in this, and it's definitely not a big part of your portfolio. Why don't you come join us, and we do this as a living, you know? We're passionate about this, and we believe in this joint mission. And that was the time that I joined Manutara, and we co-founded the fund at the end of 2017. So that's when I started really investing in venture capital. So my biggest learnings came from that experience, and it was definitely like kind of like the time you go and see reality as it is, right? When it's just a small part of your investment, it's something that it's cool, it's nice, it's fun, you know, but it doesn't really move the needle, right? But now you needed to really find the things that would move the needle and transform the world radically, right? Not marginal improvements. So that was a good turning point. And in 2018, I met Fernando Lelo de la Rea, who is the managing partner of ALLVP. And we met in an event in TechCrunch, and you were there, Nate, too. I remember we went for dinner, and it was such a nice time. So I met Fernando there, and I knew him from before, not personally, but I knew who he was, and that they invested in Corner Shop, and they were basically creating and helping spur, you know, the Latin American ecosystem. So I was like, oh my God, I'm meeting this cool investor. I want to know everything. And that's why when we started our relationship, right? And he introduced me to Federico Antoni, the other managing partner of ALLVP. And we started talking constantly and sharing visions and sharing trends and sharing companies and sharing how we saw the future. And it happened that we had a very similar vision of the future, right? So after a year just talking and Federico mentoring me on the process of becoming a venture investor, right? At the end of last year, we talked about like me joining ALLVP, right? And at the beginning, it was just an idea. And then we said, okay, let's make this happen. And that's when I joined ALLVP as a partner in January this year. And it has been the most incredible 5 months of my life.
That's an awesome story. And I do remember that event. It was a lot of fun in Brazil. And it does speak to the power of in-person events that bring together all people from all across the ecosystem, not just from one country at a time. I think it's really important to have that happen more often in LATAM, whether that ends up being virtual for a while with coronavirus that's happening or not. But I think it's really important that we try to do more of those, both at the fund level, but also at the entrepreneur level, so you can get more great connections like that.
Totally agree.
And when you went from an angel investor into doing this professionally, that's a jump that I think a lot of angel investors in the region think about doing. And it's an important jump that happens a lot in Silicon Valley, but maybe hasn't happened much in LATAM. What advice would you give to other angels who are maybe thinking about doing this more professionally?
So I think the first thing is you really, really need to make sure that you love this and you want to do this as 100% of your life, right? So being an investor and you know this well, that it's a life commitment, right? And you have to be there for the long term. You have to manage your energies for the long term. You have to be there for your entrepreneurs in the good ones and in the bad ones, right? So I think being an angel investor first allows you to see if you really like and you really want this for your life, right? And having that said, the second thing I would advise is trust your instinct and take risks. If you don't go out and try once that you really realize it's what you want to do, then it's never going to happen, you know? And the first years are tough. When I hear people thinking about venture capital, it seems that they see the glamour and the kind of like the prestige, but they don't see the struggles. And I think you really need to be patient, constant, and proactive on moving forward all the time. So I think those would be the two advice that I would give.
That's good advice. So going back into ALLVP, what kind of deals are you looking for to invest in?
I mentioned before the 4 verticals that we're having. I'm seeing closely 2 of those verticals. So on one side, I'm seeing closely verticals in human development, and this include primarily edtech. And then the second vertical that I'm seeing closely is the future of cities. And this relates with my previous expertise in prop tech and real estate. So having that said, that's the things that I'm seeing in terms of industry verticals. But then I'm also passionate about SaaS business models. I think there is a huge opportunity in SaaS in Latin America that hasn't been developed or enhanced yet. And I'm really passionate of bringing SaaS forward, whether it be a B2B model or a B2C model, but I definitely feel more comfortable with the B2B model.
When should an entrepreneur start thinking about, or when do you like to meet entrepreneurs, and when do you end up writing the check? What kind of stages?
So it depends a lot on the industry, but when to meet entrepreneurs, like the answer to that question is always. I mean, if you have an idea and you want to run by it and kind of like hear my thoughts or ALLVP's thought or a connection that we could make, I believe the time is always now, right? And in terms of when we do the investment, it depends a lot on the country, it depends a lot on the industry, but we're prepared to make pre-revenue bets, and as well we're prepared to invest in Series A and in Series B, right? So up until that point of Series B, it's always a good time to talk to us.
And in terms of process, how does the process work for an entrepreneur that wants to get investment from you and ALLVP?
So you mean how can they reach us, or?
So they say they have the first meeting with you. What kind of process do you have for deciding that you actually want to invest?
So we believe to be very fast, and we try to stand by that value. And basically we have every Wednesday, or at least now with pandemic, we're doing it on Wednesday, but in regular times that day could change. And we do every Wednesday our weekly deal flow meetings, and we go over all the deal flow that we saw, all of the teams saw, right? And we talk over the startups, and we decide to move forward with some, and we decide to monitor others, right? So I think it's a very straightforward process. We decide, yes, we're moving forward. No, we're not moving forward at the time. And then we let the entrepreneurs know, right? So from the one meeting with an entrepreneur, you can expect an answer within the next 10 days from us, whether to continue conversations or just continue the relationship, but not an investment decision at the moment.
And what do you think the LATAM ecosystem is going to do over the next couple of years? There's been huge changes since you first started angel investing with a rapid growth in startups all across the region and investing. How do you see the market currently and going forward?
Yes, that's a very good question. So as I said, I do believe SaaS is going to take up more of the market, and particularly in B2B, companies are starting to get the idea of paying a recurrent fee for a product, right? Which I would say 4 years ago wasn't there, right? They would still put it in their annual expenditures, and it would be a long sales cycle decision, right? So I believe there is a change there. And then in terms of talent, we're seeing a lot of movement from people in the US or Europe or other parts of the world moving to Latin America and searching for opportunities and joining startups and founding startups, right? So I believe there is going to be a new wave of innovation that's going to thrive with new talents, with this acceleration in technology that we're seeing happen with the pandemic, right? So there was a huge part of the population that we weren't expecting ever to go to the technology wave, right? So there was I don't know, like people over 60 not understanding technology, and now they are having Zoom meetings. I was, and this is a fun anecdote, right? I was talking to my grandmother on Saturday. She called me through the video app in WhatsApp, and then we were talking for 3 minutes, and she said, "Okay, Antonia, sorry, I have to hang out. I have my online workshop now of philosophy." And I was like, "Oh my God, you're more busy than I am in a Saturday day," right? So I believe that all that population that we weren't expecting to move ever to technology side are gonna get in and are gonna start familiarizing with technology solutions. So this opens up a huge space that we never thought possible. And that's something that really, really gets me excited, because going back to the fundamentals on why I enter technology is basically because it allows to make things more efficient and solve problems in a better way, right? So if now you have a bigger part of the population using it, you can definitely have more impact and you can definitely have more solutions. And that's on the people's adoption side, right? But then what comes next? If you have more people using tech solutions, then you have more data, right? And when you have more data, you can do more customized solutions. So I believe also that we're going to see a new wave of companies that are using and taking advantage and leveraging the fact that you're having all this data to do new solutions and to tackle new problems with this customized alternatives, right? So I think those two things really, really excite me on what's coming next, and particularly for the region that has been a bit delayed in terms of the technology adoption.
Do you have any books, blogs, podcasts, or documentaries you like to recommend to people, whether about startups or just life in general?
Yeah, so one podcast, or it's called podcast that I try to hear daily, not every time I have the time, but it's this Snap Daily that Robinhood did. And then there are other podcasts that it's nice to hear, in particular because they are fast and they have these insights, right? So one is 20 Minutes BC, for example. And then there are books, and I know that you ask this question a lot, so I'm sure you have heard several different books of startup and about the tactics and strategies and so on. So I don't know if this has been mentioned before or not, but there's one book that I like. It goes back to this fundamental that we've been talking about, that it's called Simplify. And basically it goes back to this, how can you simplify as much as you can your business model, your industry, and your solution, right? So what are really, really the trigger points that can help out and what make your value proposition stand out? And I think that's very helpful to help you frame the way that you see life and the way that you're seeing the solutions to the problems.
If you could go back to when you first started investing in tech companies, knowing everything you know today, what advice would you give yourself?
So we briefly touched that point in a couple of minutes ago, but I think that first of all is to trust your instinct, right? So sometimes particularly I am young compared to the ecosystem, right? I'm 30 years old, and you sometimes have an instinct of something, but you don't believe in yourself for that instinct to be true, right? You believe and you think, oh, I should have more experience to kind of like really argument that this is what is going to happen, or this is the way that you should look things, right? Or in someone to trust. And when you go back and you think about the way that instinct works, it's just like a sum of several different things that you have seen, and whether reading, whether talking to people, whether in your own experience. And I really believe that people should try to hear their instinct more and to listen, and that's on one side. And then on the second side, once that you have that visibility over your instinct, take more risks, right? There is no better time to do something than now, right? So if you have an idea, just go out, go and try, go and test, go and talk to people. And those would be like two things that I wish someone repeated to me several times when I started.
I think that's really, really good advice. And I think it's a good place to stop on this one. We should definitely do a second run of this in the future, around two. You have a lot to share and a lot of interesting things going on into the future. So I hope we get to do a round two. Thanks a lot for doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. It was a great talk. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk here.
It was great. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Crossing Borders with our guest, Antonia Rojas. And thank you to Angela Andraca for producing this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with a friend and give us a rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's the best way to share what's going on in Latin America's ecosystem.